We are the Liberty Intelligence Organization Network.
And this is our news recap show. I am your host. You can call me the captain. This is actually a continuation of the breaking news from yesterday. So this is really going to be a special report about what happened yesterday. And again, if you don't know what happened yesterday, I suggest you pull your head out of the sand and start getting aware of the world around you. Yesterday, April 15th, 2013, there were 2 bombs exploded along the finish line of the Boston Marathon. Casualty reports today, yesterday I reported 2 dead and about 20-something injured. Casualty reports today, 3 dead, over 100 injured. In doing investigation and research on this, I will warn people, if you're going to go ahead, as I mentioned, people should research and start getting awake and getting aware and start looking into the world around you as much as you possibly can. You know, if you're working 3 jobs and you're barely getting by and you don't got the time for this, I just don't got the time to be doing all this. Then don't worry about it, my friend. There's people like me who do this stuff because we do have the time, and we try to cohesively organize it all, so you can just tune into us, and then if you don't believe us, you can go ahead and look at the documents we provide. But I am going to let people know the photographs of what happened are gruesome. And when I say gruesome, I'm not going to go into narrative detail as I do in my science fiction novels that I write, but it's nasty scene. I mean, what more can I say? Imagine you're on bleachers and bombs explode behind you. What is the scene you can imagine? As I mentioned yesterday, a lot of them are extremities, and when I say that, a lot of people lost legs and arms from the explosion. So it's gruesome photos, a lot of shrapnel. It was a horrible, horrible, horrible thing, but I want to emphasize globalist fingerprints are all over this event. As I mentioned yesterday in my breaking news report, globalist fingerprints appear to be all over these bombs. Now, I want to go into how we know globalist fingerprints appear to be all over these bombs. Well, there's a lot of symbolism with the day it happened, and that symbolism is actually being used in the aftermath to help spin the narrative so they can bring about more of the New World Order agenda. And some people say, a lot of people, I presume some of them are trolls because they say a lot of talking points too from troll-sponsored COINTELPRO style stuff. But a lot of them always say, the New World Order isn't a thing, it's an idea. It's not a thing, it's an idea. Well, yeah, it is an idea, and it's being a bunch of criminal guys that own a bunch of corporations are trying to create this idea to make it a reality. So they, in turn, have taken the name upon themselves, the New World Order. Thusly, we call them the New World Order, because they call themselves the New World Order. So is it an idea, or is it a group of people who have proclaimed themselves the elite rulers? But they're all into symbolism. All these guys are really big into occult, mystery school, Luciferian ideals. And again, you can go ahead and look into all that stuff. A lot of people first start their awakening process by investigating this aspect of it, the symbolism aspect. A lot of people, this is their wake-up call when they start seeing all these similar symbols and then learning what these symbols mean to different occult groups, different mystery schools, and mainly to Luciferian theology. And they all do connect. They're really big into symbols. They love symbolism. So yesterday was Patriots' Day in Massachusetts. It was also Income Tax Day. And both of those symbolic days are being used in the aftermath to spin the event. They're attempting to use it within the prostitutes, the mainstream media front groups. And again, not all mainstream media are a part of it. But a number of mainstream media outlets. During the event, I noticed it. That was the trigger for me where I realized the globalists did this. Because initially I was hoping, and I mentioned yesterday, I thought, or I was initially thinking, that it's not globalist, that it looks like it might have been a lone nut, but then when all the news coverage, every single channel, they all emphasized, and I mean, it's one thing if a news reporter says, today on Patriots Day at the Boston Massacre, or at the Boston Marathon, there was this. But when they say, Today's Patriots Day, and then they go on and talk a little bit, and then 5 minutes later, I want to remind everyone it's Patriots Day. Then they go on and talk a little bit more, then they say, oh, and by the way, today's Patriots Day, and they keep repeating it over and over and over and over again. That's when it triggered for me, whoa, something's going on here. Something's going on. It's almost been pre-recorded. These teleprompter messages are being sent because all the newscasters are saying the same things over and over and over again. So that automatically, that was my wake-up call. Boom, you got to realize that this has New World Order all over it. So they were all emphasizing that. Now in the aftermath, here's what's being said. Here's how it's being skewed. The mainstream media, as was mentioned during the events on CNN mainly, they said, let's not forget that there's a lot of emphasis on international terrorism, but let's not forget that there's domestic terrorists right here as well. So that started it all off, and again, since it's Patriots Day and Income Tax Day, they found a way to link it to the groups they've been demonizing, the Department of Homeland Security. Again, those are returning veterans, conservatives, constitutionalists, libertarians, and the Fed movement, Occupy Wall Street, the Tea Party, a number of other groups, Catholics, Christians. Literally, they just label all Christians, all evangelicals, all Lutherans, all Protestants. They just lumped everybody into this terrorist group, so now everybody's labeled a terrorist. But that's who they're going to go after, because again, they're labeling all American groups terrorists, so again, they want to go after the Patriots. So they're trying to say on Patriots Day, it was right-wing, really pro-American, even though they call us anti-American, truth movement, liberty movement, awake people. So that's going to be the narrative they try to spin, and of course that's how they've tried to spin it. And again, they're doing it with the tax day. I guess they tried to use Patriots Day as it was occurring, but too many people caught on to it and said, whoa, wait a minute. And again, there must have been other people that did videos and uploaded them. But now they've spun it because none of us obviously picked up on the tax day connection. They spun it so that they're saying right-wing, anti-income tax, domestic extremists might be responsible. And again, that's in a lot of mainstream media coverage. Again, that's how they're spinning the view of this, creating the collective emotional response. In addition, neocon outlets, neocon is again neoconservatism, which is really fascism. It's really, it's not conservatism at all as far as mainstream conservatives or the majority of conservatives will view it. And again, more conservatives are switching over to constitutionalists or libertarians at this moment. And again, it's not that if you're a conservative, you switch to constitutionalist, and if you're a liberal, you switch to libertarianism. It's that constitutionalists and libertarians are almost one and the same, so we're really just returning to American ideals, which promoted liberty and upheld the Constitution, which defended our liberty as a check and a balance against tyranny. So that's really all we're trying to do here is defend individual rights. But sorry for going off on that tangent right there. Sometimes I waste too much time doing that, and I gotta focus on what I got to talk about. So neocon groups is Fox News, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity. That's the neocon style, the people you would call right-wing news outlets. And again, some people call Alex Jones right-wing news. Some people call InfoWars, liberal news. Some people accuse me of being a liberal. Some people accuse me of being conservative. Again, I'm just about the truth. I'm just about the information. So they're all emphasizing an Al-Qaeda connection and saying this might be Al-Qaeda terrorism because Muslim extremists like to target civilians. That's the talking point from the neocon side. And again, it fits into the divide and conquer narrative right there. They're going to get the mainstream liberals and the mainstream conservatives to argue over this. So that's the other side of it all. But either way, regardless of what it was, whether it was a gas main explosion that they turned into a bombing, whether it was a lone nut bomber, or whether it was a New World Order agenda, which it probably was, or whether it's Al-Qaeda, even though Al-Qaeda is part of the New World Order because it's being funded by the United States government, which has been conquered by the New World Order, so therefore that narrative would also associate it with the New World Order. Either way, here's how it's being used to demonize patriots, to reinforce this idea that there's a war on terror and there has to be active war on terror so that they can emphasize a need for a greater Department of Homeland Security, and to reinforce the new idea of creating checkpoints and putting TSA on the highways and putting TSA in the malls and putting these body scanners everywhere. So it helps bring about that idea, and it fits into the gun confiscation stuff, because once you set that apparatus up, and that's really what it is, they're setting up a domestic military apparatus, and this allows them to say, see, we need to put tanks on the highways and do all this stuff. And I'm going to tell you why they don't need to do that, because it didn't even help in the first place. So let me get into that right now, actually. So if we need more Homeland Security and Army troops on the streets, and again, they are calling to use, let me check my notes. They are calling to use Department of Homeland Security and Army Reserves and the National Guard in Boston. They're going to occupy Boston and take it over to anti-terrorism. So the feds are going to take control of Boston, I guess, is what's really being said. But they had bomb-sniffing dogs and Army personnel on site at the finish line. You could see them with the cameras. They were there when before the bombs went off. They were there. So if we need more Department of Homeland Security, if we need more of this stuff, but we had that stuff there, why didn't it stop it? So therefore, we don't need more of this, because even when you have it, it doesn't stop it. You see, there is no way to stop it, and really, it's that only coincides, makes it seem more like a New World Order thing, because they usually don't stop their own things. So there you go. That's another aspect of all of this in the aftermath. Now that we know, and it's really it's getting real crazy. As I mentioned, it's warp speed time here. I'm going to do a time check, even though I'm not limited by time. I just don't want to make it too long. So I'm going to go ahead and try to go through what else I got. So, as I mentioned yesterday when I uploaded, the police were supposedly, as tweeted by the Boston Globe, police supposedly were training for just such an event. Again, their training, as reported, was going to be across the street from the library. They were going to practice for what happens if a bomb goes off, and then what happens if another bomb goes off within seconds. How are you going to respond? So they had the first responders were all briefed and told there was going to be a training event for just such an event that actually happened in the exact spot they were going to train for it. So again, that's a strange similarity, because again, in a lot of their staged events, stuff that 9/11 for example, FAA was training on 9/11 as 9/11 happened. As the planes flew into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, they were training their flight people, the control tower people were training for how do we respond if planes get hijacked and flown into buildings. They were training for the actual event that happened. And as I mentioned yesterday, the same thing with the London subway bombings on 7/7. It's the same thing. They were training for that exact event. The authorities were training for the event that actually happened, and it wasn't just like, well, we were trained for this training and it happened on that training. It happened on that training. The bombs blew up on the trains that the training had said they were going to blow up on. So just like in this case, the training happened for the event that actually occurred exactly as the training said it would occur. Now, in addition to that, here's another strange similarity between this and prior New World Order false flag events. That's really what this was, a false flag event. Family Guy aired an episode about 3 weeks ago that had, first of all, there was a scene where Peter is in the Boston Marathon and he drives his car through the Boston Marathon. Again, for those of you who don't watch Family Guy, Peter's the main character of the show. He's driving his car through the Boston Marathon and runs over everybody and wins the race because he killed everybody. And the imagery of it is mangled body parts, destroyed bodies, and that's exactly what the gruesome photographs of the event looked like. Mangled body parts, blood everywhere, and that's what happened in the Family Guy episode. And then also in the Family Guy episode, it wasn't like it happened in the same part, but later on in the episode, Peter uses a cell phone and calls a cell phone, which accidentally triggers two explosives. and 2 bombs go off. So again, it wasn't like the scenes were exactly at the same location, but the Boston Massacre death and then 2 bombs exploding, being detonated by a cell phone. Maybe they've let on too much. But now in the aftermath of that, actually, they've started pulling down Family Guys, and they're going to re-edit those episodes. And actually, Seth MacFarlane's actually come out and said he thinks it's abhorrent that people are saying that. But we're just pointing out the similarities. Now, to point out more similarities, prior to 9/11, in The Simpsons, which was really like Family Guys become the modern day comical cartoon show for adults, but in 1999 and in 2000, The Simpsons was the big cartoon show for adults. They had 9/11 warnings a few months before 9/11 happened, and that was when Bart Simpson held up a magazine, and it said New York, and then it had the Twin Towers and that airplane, and it says 9/11 on it. So again, similarity with their cartoon shows that are the big mainstream media cartoon shows for adults. They warn you about what they're going to do before they do it, and I always tell people that's evil's rule. There's one rule that evil follows, and that is evil has to tell you what it's going to do before it does it. So again, that's how they do it. And again, I'm sure in the aftermath of this, more stuff is going to come to light that perhaps we had warning of this through globalist propaganda. Now, the elites, apparently, on 9/11, just more similarities, elites were warned on 9/11 not to fly to New York. A lot of people were told who worked in the World Trade Centers, they were told, don't come to work. Don't come to work on 9/11. They were told that. Now, apparently, some insiders who were first of all, the bombs didn't explode until way after the race. All the popular runners, all the people who are like trained marathon runners, they had already finished the race. So this was just the charity citizen people. So all the celebrity sports stars were out of the way, had already finished the race. And at the same time, some insiders, Marine people, Army people, because this is a charity run, a lot of people run in it. It's the longest running marathon in the United States. So they were pulled out of the race before reaching the finish line. And the only place I've heard that thus far, again, I'm just going to report it, but you can go ahead and look into it yourself. I'm going to look more into it, but was one of the InfoWars reporters. His brother was running in the marathon, and before the bombs went off, when he was nearing the finish line, he was pulled aside by other Army personnel or intelligence personnel. He might work for an intelligence group, but he's in the military-industrial complex is the emphasis here, the point. And he was pulled out of the race, and they told him, you're dehydrated, you need to go to the hospital right now. You know, they told him to leave the race and go to the hospital. He wasn't really dehydrated, but that's they were saying, here's your excuse. If people ask you why you didn't finish the race, you were dehydrated and went to the hospital. So again, that's people are pulled aside and warned. The insiders, the elites were warned not to go to New York. The inside military-industrial complex people are pulled aside and not told not to finish the race. Now, as I mentioned, Chris Matthews and David Axelrod, they're suggesting that patriot groups are possibly behind this, which again fits the New World Order agenda as they've been promoting it for the past, I don't know, 3 to 5 years. And again, there's reports officials seem to know about the bombs, and again, that's because the officials were trained that this was going to happen. They were told, we're going to train for this event. Wink, wink. It's a training event. And again, if it's a training event, why did people really get hurt? And again, I mentioned yesterday maybe that the officials think it's part of the training, so they're not aware that it's a real event. But now in conclusion, again, that I've gone over just about everything that there is to go over at this point in relation to what happened yesterday. And again, this just goes to show you how much time can really be spent on one aspect of the New World Order. And again, this is just something that recently happened. When we're talking about past events, it's really documented, especially when you go as far back as JFK. It's really as far back as the Federal Reserve, as far back as the ancient mystery school beliefs. It's really well documented because a lot has been told about this. A lot of time has been spent researching and analyzing this stuff. But in hindsight of all this, I want to remind folks, Dianne Feinstein was really leading the gun-grabbing crusade, and a bunch of other gun-grabbing proponents, and then Janet Napolitano of Department of Homeland Security. Feinstein said if we don't pass reasonable gun control laws, there's going to be more events. And you could see the wickedness in her eye. There's going to be more events because they plan for more events. And then also, and other people have said it too, and then Janet Napolitano, she said, because of the sequester thing, oh, if the Department of Homeland Security budget gets cut, there's going to be more terror attacks, wink, wink. And she didn't really wink, wink, but again, that's what they're saying. They're warning you, we're going to do more events. So this just coincides with what they've been telling us. And there you go, that's up-to-date information. This is going to be an extended, pretty long broadcast here, but again, it is breaking news, so I want to try to get as much information out there as possible right now, not only to thwart them so that when they start trying to blame patriot groups, people start waking up faster, but at the same time, just so people can get all the information, just understand it for yourself and really analyze all this stuff that I give you and look into more and analyze it for yourself. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and as always, I want to remind everyone to stay safe, to stay strong, to stay free, and to stay informed.